Well, it's a rainy day here in Ohio. I'm heading into the barn right now. Tough 48 hours for me driving, and I guess for our barn, quite frankly. You know, when I look back at the last two race cards, I thought Gorgeous Package was probably close to a lock. Didn't get a check. And Salisbury Ian was even probably closer to a lock and didn't get a check. And when it came to Gorgeous Package, I'm sure her blood will tell us a little more today, but mechanically she was okay, just flat. And then when it came to Ian last night, you know, I trained him hard the week before, and looking at how he trained and looking at where he was going to race, it just seemed to me like it was going to be a walkover. But you can never ever take this game for granted. And when it came to Ian leaving the gate, that head pole popped off, and I'd say, oh, the head pole had nothing to do with it. In fact, it didn't even bother him at all. Cleared to the front, you know, you get up there 27 and a piece, half in 57 to a horse that you just trained much faster. I really at no point. Now, I don't know the horse, so the way he kind of drives, he's kind of on a loose line a little bit. So it's hard to say. I just felt when I stepped on the gas starting into the backstretch that he was going to be gone. He was gone in the opposite direction. So you're left, you know, why? It was such a glaringly obvious issue. Whichever it is, it should be easy to figure it out. Did he bleed? No, probably not. Now, we couldn't scope him last night at that time, but I know when I trained him he didn't bleed, so I find it highly unlikely he bled last night. Tying up is a likely culprit. First time, new track. I could probably give you a bunch of stupid excuses why he tied up, but for the most part, except for drawing his blood and having absolute certainty that he was fine, which I suppose we could have done, it just felt unnecessary at the time. Aside from that, I thought the horse was going to be perfect. Paced good. You know, you had to watch him at the gate, they said. You had to watch him in the turns. Mechanically, the horse was great. He just wasn't. Now, I guess I could add shutting his air off to that, but where did I shut his air off? Now, I did score him down, but he wasn't super hot. Either way, we'll start with the blood work and go from there with Salisbury Ian. But when you tout a horse like that, for me, you know, it's a it's a point of pride to say to people, hey, this horse will be good, and he is. And when he isn't, well, it's quite the opposite. It's embarrassing and frustrating, disappointing. All things fall under the umbrella of horse racing. I guess for those of you out there that bet him, you got your refund because the head pole broke. But you're lucky you got your refund because the head pole had no bearing on how he raced. So we'll get back to Ian when we get a little bit more information as to what happened last night. And the night before, Gorgeous Package again, just got to get the blood work on her and figure out what went wrong there. We all know Gorgeous Package inside and out. Was she flat? Yes. Was she dull? Yes. Why? Not positive yet. But again, that's something we can get to. I would point out that our last two horses racing kind of flat. Now the next two I'll talk about, but these two horses racing kind of flat, what my brain does is project also. Well, Anthony, if these two are flat, you better get a firm grip on Tally the Tab and Memento Mori and Allure heading into Wednesday. We already have that firm grip. They've all, aside from the blood work, which a little bit different because I know all these horses and we know the issues and we've been treating them, so I'm not overly concerned. But obviously something that was on the forefront of my mind, at least as we headed into the latter part of the card. I was mad last night because they had Rock Shining Star in the open. Raced good, but again, I might have guzzled him a little bit at the quarter pole letting Aaron go. He's a very, very easy horse to shut his air off a little bit. And if you were to tell me that snuggie I put on him at the quarter pole to let Aaron go was enough to take away from the end of the race. I could maybe buy into that. I could. I'll tell you what he did do. He paced the half perfect. He got up there 26-4. Totally different horse on the track now as when we bought him. Not the same horse speed-wise, I don't think. Might have lost a step. Just a step. But if it's his airway, we can work on that also. He wasn't crazy hot. He was pretty obedient, actually. He wanted to race on the front end last night, I can tell you that. But I had to stir him up around the turn to get the young Hanners kid in behind me. You know, as you play the race out, he beats me at the wire and I finish fifth. So I'm like, why didn't you let him go? Well, obviously I don't know that in the first turn. I'm thinking, let Aaron go. You know, we're going such a speed that Ronnie's going to have a tough time getting to Aaron. And if he doesn't get to him by the half, he's not letting him go. And that was a Hail Mary where he let him go. It was the very last ditch effort to let him go. He almost left him out. And if Rock is good and they mix it up on the front, who knows what happens? And that's what I was thinking. Anyway, he ended up fifth, I guess. And then greatest ending, just short. You know, he was off. I was going over it in my mind after, you know, I thought he could have been a little bit better, but tying up very, very bad 2, 3, 4 weeks ago. Coming back, yeah, we trained him at 2.5. He trained good, but is that enough to go out and pace at 54 last night? No. He paced where he could last night. And he'll be better next week for it, I would imagine. Now, his blood we will draw to make sure. Anyway, so we got some splaining to do. We got some investigating to do with respect to Salzburgian. Maybe a little bit less with Gorgeous Package. I don't think mechanically there was nothing wrong with her. She was just a little flat. I'll tell you who did race good last night. Woodmere Betcha. The only problem Woodmere Betcha has is now she's out of that class, which is so odd to me. I just... If they cannot fill a 3-year-old filly class that is accommodating, or classes that are accommodating the 3-year-old fillies in Ontario, well, you know, honestly, I don't want to be negative. Honestly, it would be disappointing if they couldn't do that. So I hope that when we look at the draw next week, Woodmere Betcha's in a place she can do good. Because it is worth noting that with 7 wins, she fits the non-winners of 10 at Dayton. And I know she was running in, it doesn't steer the greatest, but she's going to get around Dayton just fine. She get her on any track just fine. Hang her up right. Hang her up good. Get her good. Keep her sound. I don't want to move her out of Ontario. But we're racing for 11,000 Canadian. There isn't a track south of the border that doesn't offer more purse money for the class she has to race in. And that can't be what it's just about. I want to put her in a place that she can do good. And honestly, I do want to help out filling races and filling the box in Ontario. But she got to give us a fighting chance. They can't expect us to keep horses in Ontario that are going to be long shots all the time. And these aren't bad horses. The Gorgeous Package is not a bad filly. He's 52, 53 all summer. Yet we can't find a class for him. So I have to send her back. I just want... you know what I'd like? I'd like somebody to step in to almost 2 or 3 roles in racing and just start over. This is how we did things. This is how we're going to do things. And this is an extension of, what I spoke about at the New York Assembly last week. And from what I hear, they're making some very, very big gains in regards to moving the threshold in New York already. And if that's the case, well, that changes the playing field quite a bit. I would like people to understand that. You shouldn't have to go before the New York Assembly to make changes. changes. There should be changes. There should be a push for these changes from inside the industry. Those are the people that end up with the legislature if it needs to be changed in that manner. It shouldn't start there. That's the finish line. And whether it's fractional ownership, or whether it's licensing reform, or whether it's how we manage our horses in each jurisdiction, these things need to be addressed immediately. And I don't want to hear about full crops. Oh, they're up, they're down, they're up, they're down. That's for the breeders. That's for the yearlings and 2-year-olds. That's for projecting down the road. But it means nothing today, right now, today. And if we get into a position where we have a little more ability and flexibility, I should say, in building these condition sheets, then it won't matter. I shouldn't say it won't matter. It will always matter. We always need to have. You don't want to see that full crop dip, because that's what's ahead 3 years down the road, right? But by understanding, I know I've said this a million times, by understanding your jurisdiction, what is there, it gives you a better idea of what could be there and what needs to be there. And then rather than Anthony McDonald whining in his videos and saying it's really hard to buy a horse from Mohawk, you can pick the phone up and say, hey, it's so-and-so from Mohawk. I'm going to email you a list of classes that are close to filling, and if you have horses for those classes, we'd really be interested in getting those classes to go. 100%. Next time Doyle Transport is at Northfield or the Meadows or wherever we have horses that fit those classes, they will be heading that direction. We want to race in, make no mistake, you might hear me rail on about Mohawk. Mohawk is, for the most part, every bit the pinnacle of racing in North America. Of course we want to race there. But it can't be a sacrifice. It has to be an agreement between the two parties. These are the horses we need. I will provide those horses. Not, hey, we need horses. Okay, here, have these ones, see if it works. That can't happen anymore. That's irresponsible on my part. And I would just like the industry as a whole, and this is not just Mohawk. This goes on everywhere, but when it goes on at the Meadows, we just go to Dayton or race at Northfield or sell the horse or send it to Dover where they haven't got in yet. So there's these issues I talk about all the time are not indicative. They're not solely based in Mohawk. Mohawk is just a focal point because, we've had horses that haven't been able to get in or haven't been able to get in the class we'd hoped they get in. Ended up being a sacrificial lamb. And I'm sure the race office is doing the best they can to fill classes. But again, it goes back to what I initially said. I would like to see someone step in and reform some of this. The biggest problem racing faces, everybody knows this, it isn't a horse shortage, it isn't race dates, it isn't drag time, it isn't 10% takeouts or 14, it's owners. You are the testimonials of this industry. If you're watching this, there's a good chance you're probably one of our clients. And if you're not, you certainly understand the importance of fractional ownership. And I know it's tricky. It's hard because how do you help trainers that are introverts, that don't generally like to communicate with people, talk to people, are not outgoing? How do you convince them to market and advertise themselves in such a manner and be open and transparent in such a way that it excites people in the general public about horse racing? It's a difficult thing to do. But the first step is is laying that foundation. You need to have a website. And I guess the easiest way to do it would be to have a jurisdictional website. Fractional ownership trainers of Delaware, of Ohio, of Pennsylvania, of Ontario. Now, the reason the commissions don't really want to help and they're a little cagey about it is because what if they tout one of these fractional trainers? What if they're touting Anthony McDonald and he ends up getting arrested for a violent crime, or ends up, he's not very a good person after all. Maybe he's a bad person. It reflects poorly on the commission, so it can't really be the commission to do it. They can help. There's always money inside the industry for marketing and advertising, and this is the best marketing and advertising. There are smart enough people out there that can build a site and make sure that you have contracts and that everybody is open and transparent in a very general manner. List the trainers that are actively searching for fractional owners. That's step one. Now you have to push fractional ownership. How important is it? That's the easy part. That's not difficult. But then the follow through, you have to have somebody that's there to help both sides, right? Help the fractional trainers deal with this new volume of smaller clients. And you have to help the smaller clients make sure that the trainers are transparent and open. And there's going to be a learning curve. But much like anything else, if I want to go buy a TV for my house, I'm going to do my due diligence. I'm going to read consumer reports. I'm going to go online. When I'm done, I'm going to ask my brother Curtis, because he's our IT guy for the entire family. Anything goes wrong, from the toaster to the TV, Curtis is the first phone call. Then Lloyd. Then just throw in the garbage, I guess. I don't know. But we all don't want to end up with a lemon, whether it's a car or a TV or a bad meal or anything else. So the best way to do it, if it costs you X amount of dollars to buy 1% of a horse, and you get involved. And this is how many of you out there, if you've been with us a while, maybe started with 1 or 2% and now have 10 or 20, and in other people's cases, a lot in our stable, because you feel comfortable in your surroundings. And as that fractional ownership group grows with any trainer, the level of confidence from the people involved grow also. These are all baby steps moving forward for our industry, but things that need to happen. And I'm not excluding the gamblers. That's a whole other side of the industry I know nothing about. The breeders, whole other industry, that side of the industry I know nothing about. I don't really know the big deal between a 14 and 20% takeout and 18% takeout. In my mind, I roughly understand what you're saying. I could care less. But to gamblers, it's a big deal. So, if it's a big deal to gamblers, then there should be another portion of the industry dedicated to working with the gamblers. There already is anyway, I'm sure of that. And the breeders, of course. But all these components are a little rusty, right? They don't work as well as they used to. They need a little WD-40, they need a little polish. And little by little, as every aspect of this industry is polished up and strengthened, what you're left with is that final product of a strong industry. That doesn't happen overnight. That's the one thing this game cannot get its head around, is that there's nothing you can do to fix what is broken in this industry in one day. They believe there's this perfect fix, this magic bullet that will fix everything, and we're going to all wake up January 1st and the industry is booming. It doesn't work that way. I'm not the guy who looks, I haven't planned anything in my life a year, 2, 5, 10 ahead. But that's what you need. You need foresight. You need an understanding of where you're headed with the product you have. And it's so easy for people in this industry to call horse racing dead, but it is not. It just needs rebranded for what it is. And let go of what it isn't. Anyway, my sermon for a rainy Tuesday. But make no mistake, thoroughly pleased with the way the babies look. Thoroughly pleased with the way things are going. Not pleased with the last 48 hours, but we all know these things will happen. Every single day there's a new job to do. We've got a couple of horses to qualify tomorrow. Got some horses ready to qualify the week after. Got some babies that are maybe 3-4 weeks out. 2-year-olds coming back. Things are going well right now. They can always be better, but they could always be worse. So, have a great day, everybody. It's, as I said, kind of a gloomy, chilly morning here in Ohio, but hopefully the sun comes up tomorrow. Take care.